At 1:42 p.m., the china plates winked at me like witnesses who wouldn't talk. I'd lined up 30 of them on our Savannah dining table. White rims, gold bead, Vivian's choice, not mine. The house smelled like lemon polish and my own nerves. Hudson stood in the doorway, scrolling his phone, the posture of a man allergic to effort. Vivian arrived on heels that stabbed the hardwood. Click, click, verdict. "Isabella," she said, kissing the air beside my cheek, as if affection were a draft she shouldn't sign. "I've firmed up the guest list for Thursday. 30. Well, 29 and little Timmy. He eats like a man." I kept my voice low and even, the way you do when you're a 61-year-old black woman who has learned that calm is armor. 30 guests. Copy that. She slid a folded paper across the table like evidence. Names marched down the page. My eye snagged on a blank space where mine should have been. Hostess. None. Not even a courtesy initial. I felt the old sting, the one from 2019 when she told a cousin, within my hearing, "Isabella's useful. She cooks." Useful. Not loved, not family. Useful. "Menu," she chirped, producing a second page. "Turkey with 3 stuffings, honey ham, 7 sides, 4 desserts, no canned crusts. The Sanders detest shortcuts." Hudson finally looked up. "Babe, just make it perfect this time." He said it softly, like a compliment. It landed like a bruise. "Budget?" I asked. Vivian waved it away. "You know how to shop. Don't be dramatic." "I keep receipts. It's not a motto. It's muscle memory." I wrote down the numbers anyway. Turkey X2, $78.46. Ham, $49.90. Produce, $183.12. Dry goods, $119.27. Dairy, $87.44. My pen didn't tremble. My hands have stirred pots through grief. They don't shake for groceries. "Call it 2 p.m. "Sharp," she said, tapping my grandmother's table as if it were hers. "The country club friends prefer an early carving." 2 p.m., I repeated. "Sharp. Don't forget place cards," Hudson added. "Mom likes calligraphy." "She can write them," I said, too quick. Vivian's smile hardened. "Isabella, dear, hosting has a standard. People talk. People talk." That line again. The rope that has kept me hauling their image uphill for years. I studied the list. Ruby's name wasn't there. Divorced last spring, messy, human, inconvenient, exiled. "Where's Ruby?" I asked. Vivian's lips thinned. "She'll be more comfortable elsewhere." "And me?" I lifted the paper. "Am I comfortable?" "Don't start," Hudson said. "You always pull it off. Always pull it off." The praise that felt like a chain. I looked at my brown hands, the faint flower scar on my thumb from a Christmas pie that earned Vivian's comment. "Not quite fluted." I remember because I keep receipts, not just paper ones. In the kitchen, I ran the tap until the water scalded and scrubbed a spotless pan just for the noise. Vivian drifted after me like cologne. "Marinate the ham overnight," she said. "Use my method. And Isabella, no gloves this year. They cheapen the look." I turned. "Do I look cheap to you?" She blinked. "Don't be sensitive." "I'm not sensitive," I said. "I'm tired." Her chin lifted. "Family requires sacrifice." I folded the list twice, then again until it was a hard little square in my palm. Whose family? If stories like this help you breathe, tap like and subscribe. Subscribe to our channel. This helps our work reach more people. The paper edges dug crescents into my skin as I realized my name wasn't missing by accident. It was policy. Tuesday, 6:03 a.m., fluorescent light grocery store, aisle 5. The cart's front wheel fought left like it had somewhere else to be. I did the math out loud, because when men say it all just happens, women know it's arithmetic. 2 turkeys, 20 pounds each, 1 ham, 7 sides, 4 desserts. 30 mouths, 2 hands, 1 back. The receipt printed like a tale, $2,300, and change across 3 stores, because of course, one store never has the good vanilla. I took a photo of every slip. I keep receipts. Mrs. Suzanne, my neighbor, rolled up behind me with a basket of coffee and mercy. "Big crowd this year?" she asked. 30, I said. She paused. "And how many cooks?" "1, I said. "But he carves." She exhaled. Honey, that's not help. That's applause. Back home, I staged the kitchen like a field hospital, cutting boards, timers, roasting pans lined like silver coffins. My gray coils were pinned up, my apron tied tight. At 10:12 a.m., Hudson wandered in wearing golf shorts. He kissed my cheek without looking. Need anything? De-string these beans, I said, handing him a bowl. He checked his watch. I promised the guys 9 holes. Pre-holiday tradition. He set the bowl back as if it were hot. I'll be back to help with the heavy lifting. The heavy lifting is now, I said. Babe, he smiled, gentle the way a hand can be before it presses a bruise. You always pull it off. When he left, the quiet wasn't quiet. It was a siren only I could hear. I chopped, I brined, I labeled containers with blue painter's tape. Thursday, 2 p.m. Stuffing number 1, do not eat. The fridge looked like a crime board. Vivian called at 5:28 p.m. Update? On schedule, I lied. Oh, and little Timmy has a severe nut allergy. Avoid cross-contamination. Life or death? I stared at the pecan pie cooling on the rack. Which dishes does he? You'll figure it out, she said. You're good at details. Click. Details. I scrubbed, rewrote, remapped. 3 nut dishes tossed. My hands were raw, the skin pale and pruned around my wedding band. I peeled them off the sink edge and kept going. At 9:40 p.m., I laid the place cards out to breathe. Vivian's name, center. The Sanders to her right. Hudson at the head, of course. I wrote Isabella on a spare card and placed it at the corner by the kitchen door, the station where the help stands, where you can eat cold if you're quick. I stared at my own name exiled to the edge and felt something old and careful snap inside. Not loud, not dramatic. Clean, like thread cut close. I opened the buffet drawer for the napkin rings and found an envelope tucked under the damask. Harbor House Catering, $250 deposit, refunded last week. The note field read, host canceled, going homemade for optics. My throat went cold. She'd had a way out and chose the spectacle. She'd pocketed the refund and handed me the labor as theater. I took a picture of the receipt, flipped my phone to record, and whispered the date and time like a bookkeeper of my own life. I wasn't the hostess. I was the budget line she refused to pay. Sleep came like a bad bargain. I lay there listening to the refrigerator hum and the small clicks of the house settling around me like a polite jailer. At 2:11 a.m., I gave up and went downstairs. The kitchen light made everything look honest, no shadows to hide behind. I pulled the catering receipt from the envelope and flattened it with my palm. Harbor House Catering. Deposit, $250. Date, 11/12, 10:08 a.m. Status, refunded, 11/18, 3:41 p.m. Reason, host canceled, going homemade for optics. Refund to V. Foster. Card ending 4412 optics. I whispered the word because it tasted like old perfume and fresh lies. I took a photo and slid it into the beige folder I keep under the toaster, the one that holds the sort of truths families swear they don't remember that way. The smell of pecans still hung in the air, sweet and useless now. My thumb traced the flower scar I've carried since Christmas 2019, the year Vivian demanded 2 pumpkin pies and 1 pecan because real hostesses never buy crust. Hudson had kissed my neck, promising he'd plate and serve and make sure I ate hot. He'd vanished to watch the game, and when the pies hit the table, edges not quite fluted, Vivian murmured, "She tries. She tries." Back then, it stung. Now it sounded like a verdict. Guilty of effort, sentenced to repeat. I brewed coffee as if it were penance. At 5:07 a.m., I opened Hudson's office drawer to replace a dead pen and found a stack of place card templates he'd printed months ago, calligraphy fonts and all. Mom likes calligraphy, he'd said. It wasn't a preference. It was policy disguised as taste. My phone buzzed with a text from Carmen, my sister-in-law. You good for Thursday? I can bring mac and cheese if Vivian allows. If Vivian allows. I typed, bring it, come hungry, then deleted it, then typed it again and sent it. At 8:32 a.m., and Suzanne knocked with a casserole dish and her good eyes. "I brought a pan so you can freeze ahead," she said, stepping around the shame like a pro. "Also, this." She handed me a tiny digital recorder. "You said she critiques. Stop telling me. Let her tell the tape." "I don't want to be petty," I said. "This isn't petty," she said. "It's proof. Proof is how women stop explaining." I placed the recorder in the pocket of my apron next to a short golf pencil, the sort men keep behind their ears to measure things they don't lift. I turned it on. Hudson wandered in at 9:05 a.m., hair damp, smelling like eucalyptus shampoo, and no intention. "You're up early, babe." "I never went down," I said. He peered into the fridge. "Wow, this is a lot." He said it like a tourist at a canyon, amazed by erosion someone else survived. "Help me with the brine," I said. "Can't. Call with Singapore at 10. But I'll carve." There it was again. Applause, not help. He kissed my forehead and left a sweat-slick half-moon that made me feel marked, not loved. I checked the pantry and found a new pack of place cards, 30. No spares, no me. "If stories like this help you breathe, tap like and subscribe," I murmured to the recorder, letting the lens of other women steady my hand. I tucked the catering receipt deeper into the beige folder, then opened my banking app to reconcile the grocery charges. The numbers loaded slow, then clear, Walmart 303.99 across 3 stores, and sitting one line above them, a transfer I didn't expect, 1,250 $1, not from Vivian to me, but from our joint account to a card labeled H. Foster, 44212. Why did the refund for Vivian's canceled catering say Hudson's card number? By noon, the house smelled like onions, lemon, and math. I moved in careful loops. Thaw, brine, label, breathe. Thaw, brine, label, breathe. I set the beige folder on the counter, clipped open, like a small open mouth learning to speak. The bank app blinked at me again. I scrolled up. 11:12, 10:02 a.m. Transfer to H. Foster, 4412, 1,251, then 11:18, 3:41 p.m. Refund from Harbor House, 1,251 to 4412. It wasn't Vivian's card, it was Hudson's. I clicked the memo, V. Foster, Thanksgiving deposit. My scalp prickled. Hudson had floated the deposit on our account, then the refund landed back on his card. I stared at the pot of stock. The fat eyes winked up at me like they knew. The front door announced Vivian with those executioner heels. The recorder in my apron glowed a tiny red LED heartbeat. I smiled a Sunday smile. "How's our timeline?" she asked, breezing in on cool air and command. "Birds are brining," I said. "Sides staged. Desserts on schedule." "Good," she said, scanning the counters. "The Sanders have refined palates. Don't embarrass us." I touched the folder lightly. If the Sanders needed refined, why cancel catering? Her eyes flicked. "Catering?" I slid the Harbor House slip halfway out. "You know, optics." A pause, microscopic to the human ear, eternal to a woman who's lived on crumbs. Then she smiled. I considered it, decided against. Homemade is warmer. Warmer for whom? She approached the pecan pie, sniffed, and slid it aside as if nuts could leap. "By the way, no nuts. Life or death." "Mentioned yesterday," I said, "after I baked." "You're adaptable," she said. "It's your gift." "Gifts come with consent," I said. "This feels like conscription." She set both hands on my counter, nails immaculate. "Isabella, don't make this difficult. Your competence is a blessing." "Whose ledger is that written in?" I asked, head tilted. "Because my body keeps a different set of books." Her gaze sharpened. "Are you keeping track?" "I'm a retired accountant," I said. "I keep receipts." The red LED blinked. The recorder drank it all. Tone, timing. The moment she said with a pitying laugh, "Oh, darling, in this family, your place is the kitchen. It's where you shine." My hand didn't shake. I slid the folder closed, pressed the clip, and felt a quiet decision take a seat at my table, like a guest who'd finally RSVP'd. When she left to check table linens, I opened my laptop and searched Flight 442, Savannah to Maui. Departure 4:15 a.m. A window seat was still there, waiting like a small blue door. My cursor hovered over select. I thought of Ruby, uninvited because grief isn't pretty. I thought of my name missing from the place cards. I thought of the $250 that had left our account and returned to a card that wasn't mine. Hudson texted, "Babe, Singapore call ran long. Don't wait dinner for me. Mom will help." I stared at "Mom will help" and almost laughed. Help had always meant supervision in a nicer dress. I clicked select. The seat turned gray, reserved. My breathing steadied like a pot finding its simmer. I opened notes and listed what I'd leave. Timers set, oven racks moved, birds brined, folder labeled proof. The printer coughed out 2 copies of the Harbor House receipt, one for the folder, one for my carry-on. When the pages slid into the tray, I saw it clear as a ledger line. This wasn't only about labor, it was about who profits from my silence. I tucked my passport into the beige folder to check the zipper and froze at an older slip, stuck to the lining, Christmas 2019, wine merchant, 486.70. Memo, V. Foster, charged to H. Foster, reimbursed in cash. If the catering refund and the Christmas wine both cycled through Hudson's card, then who had been cashing out my holidays all these years? Wednesday, 11:20, 7:18 a.m. I had timers stacked like choir notes, stock on low, yams on a gentle simmer, brine cooling in a steel bowl that reflected my face like a witness. The beige folder lay under the fruit bowl, close enough to touch, far enough to pass for ordinary. I opened my notebook and totaled the week so far, $1,303.19. Groceries, $42. 11, extra roasting pan, plus $18.39, foil, parchment, twine, Ice 1363.69. I wrote the number twice so it wouldn't hide. Hudson padded in, phone in one hand, golf towel slung over his shoulder like a promise he'd never keep. "Morning, Chef." "Don't call me that," I said, not unkindly. "Chefs get paid." He grinned, missing the point on purpose. "Mom says the Sanders might bring an extra couple. Just 2 more plates." He kissed my cheek. "I'll add a leaf to the table." "Add another $90 to the budget," I said. 2 more plates is 2 more people with appetites. He opened the fridge, impressed by quantity in the way men are impressed by consequences they won't carry. "Damn, that's a lot." "It's almost $1,400, I said. "From our account." His brow creased. "Babe, we're fine. And Mom helped with the down payment on this house. Hosting is how we show appreciation. Repayment isn't servitude," I said. "And appreciation isn't indenture." He waved it off, eyes already on his calendar. "We'll keep it simple next year." "Then keep it simple this year," I said, surprising myself with the clean angle of it. "Ask everyone to bring a dish, or order from Harbor House." He stiffened. "We talked about this. Homemade is warmer, and Mom's friends expect—" "Optics," I said, watching his face when I said the word. He flinched like I'd switched on a light. "Where'd you hear that?" "Receipt in the buffet. Deposit what on $250. Refunded $11.18. Going homemade for optics." He swallowed. "It was just an idea. Mom changed her mind." I wiped my hands on a towel that no longer smelled like lemon, just like labor. Did Mom change her mind, or did the money change pockets? "Don't be unfair," he said. "It's Thanksgiving. You're making this ugly." "It is ugly," I said. "You just prefer it plated nicely." His phone buzzed. A text from Vivian flashing across the screen. "Remind Isabella. No gloves. The ladies notice." He turned the phone face down, embarrassed in the small way that thinks it's big. "I'm done bleeding to keep her illusions hydrated," I said. "Pick one, potluck, catering, or fewer people." He smiled the way you do when a child insists the sky is green. "Babe, you always pull it out." "Say it," I warned, "and watch the pot boil over." He didn't say it. Progress or caution. He tucked the phone into his pocket. "I have that Singapore call. Back by noon. 2 p.m. "Tomorrow," I said, tapping the notebook. "That's the clock. It keeps time whether you notice or not." When he left, the kitchen felt taller. I pulled the recorder from my apron pocket and set it beside the folder. Its tiny red light winked like courage. I scrolled the bank app again, Watch the $250 exit our joint account, return to H. Foster, 4412, then disappear into the general murk of family expenses. A shell game, but I'd marked the P. The doorbell rang. Suzanne stood there with aluminum pans and a look I recognized from church mirrors. "Quick lesson," she said, stepping in. "When you're drowning, swim to the nearest island. That can be a friend, or it can be a gate at 4:15 a.m. I exhaled. I booked it. Her smile was all sunrise. Then set the table with truth. I labeled the folder spine in block letters. Proof, Thanksgiving 2024. The marker bled slightly into the cardboard like ink into cloth, making the word look older, permanent. At 11:57 a.m., Hudson texted a screenshot of place settings he'd arranged, neat as soldiers, 30 name cards. 30. Not mine. I typed, deleted, and typed again. "Where am I sitting?" He replied, "You know you don't sit. You're all over. That's your magic." How do you tell a man that magic isn't real without making him hate you for every trick he insisted on believing? Wednesday, 4:03 p.m. I placed a covered casserole in the center of the table as if it were a white flag. Macaroni and cheese, Carmen's recipe, dense with Cabot cheddar and something that tasted like 1997 when we were both broke and joyful. I texted Vivian. Proposal. Potluck elements to avoid waste and manage allergy. I attached a tidy list. Aunt Margaret, salad, Uncle Raymond, stuffing, Sanders, dessert, nut-free, Carmen, mac. Distribution like dignity. She replied instantly, "Absolutely not. This is my reputation. My reputation, not ours, not even the family's. Singular, manicured, and thirsty." I called her, voice to voice, no room for performance. "Vivian, 30 guests is a restaurant. Restaurants have teams. I'm one woman." "You're not alone," she said, and I could hear cookware clinking in the background of her imagination. "Hudson will carve. Carving is a victory lap, not labor. Isabella," she sighed, the syllables stretched like taffy. "We helped with the down payment. We don't ask for much. You ask for holidays," I said. "You ask for my back, my hands, my sleep, my name off the table." Silence. Then, "Wear the blue dress tomorrow. The Sanders wife admires ladylike choices." "Vivian," I said, keeping my voice church soft, courtroom precise. "You canceled catering and took the refund. The money left our account and landed on Hudson's card. If you wanted warmth, you could have paid the invoice and requested my pies on the side." She laughed. "Silverware in a disposal." "You sound paranoid." "I sound like math." Another beat of silence. Then she shifted tactics. "If you can't manage 30, say so. We'll reduce the menu, not the guest list." "Reduce the menu," I repeated, picturing the line of dishes she'd demanded like a chorus line she intended to take a bow for. "To what?" "Turkey, ham, green beans, potatoes, dressing, cranberry, rolls, 3 pies. Simple." "That's still 10 items," I said. "For one person. With a severe allergy in the room." "You're capable," she said. "It's your—" "Don't say gift," I warned. "Gifts are given. This is taken." She hung up without goodbye. In the quiet, the timer shrilled. I pulled the stock, skimmed the fat, and poured it into labeled containers. Stock. 2:01 p.m. A plan is a kindness, even when it's not for you. At 6:20 p.m., Hudson came home radiant with exertion and male ease. "Great round," he said, dropping a kiss and a shadow of grass on my floor. "What's for dinner?" "Leftovers," I said, "and a conversation." He sank into a chair, already wary. "If this is about Mom's texts, it's about your card," I said. 4412. "The catering deposit went out of our account and came back to your card. Where did it go next?" He blinked. "Fees, wine, ice, rentals maybe." "Rentals are on my card," I said, sliding a small stack of till slips toward him. "Wine is Christmas 2019. I found the note. Reimbursed in cash." "Who handled the cash?" He looked like a boy caught with sugared lips. "It's complicated." "No," I said gently. "It's arithmetic." He rubbed his forehead. "Mom was going to cover extras, but then she asked me to float and she'd pay me back. She did. In envelopes." Envelope money leaves no trail, I said. That's the point. Babe, he said, voice softening into the imitation of intimacy. Don't make a federal case. It's family. I am family, I said. Yet I'm the only one without a seat. He reached across the table, palm up. Tell me what you want. I want a smaller table, I said. A fair ledger. And a yes when I say no. He stared at me, confused by a grammar he'd never had to learn. Tomorrow is already set in motion, he said finally. Can you just do this one last time? I swear we'll change next year. I looked at the folder, at the recorder, at the boarding pass quietly printing in the office down the hall, time stamped 8:41 p.m. I thought of the 2 a.m. road to the airport and the clean, cold air that tastes like choice. If stories like this help you breathe, tap like and subscribe, I whispered, for the women who'd taught me to stop apologizing for drowning. Then I slid the proof folder to the center of the table and watched Hudson's eyes catch on the bold marker bleed as he asked, without knowing what he was asking, why is there a copy of my mother's signature on that refund? By 10:03 p.m., the house had the exhausted smell of a church after a funeral. Wax, starch, and the hush of what didn't get said. I'd cooled the stock, tucked it into the fridge like sleeping children, and set the oven racks where science said they must be if meat is to forgive you. My legs hummed the low ache of women's work, calves tight, knees singing, back a single iron line. Hudson wandered in, damp hair, clean t-shirt, the costume of the helpful husband. I found the gravy boat, he announced, as if locating a prop saved the play. He paused at the proof, Thanksgiving 2024 folder on the table. This is dramatic, Bella. It's arithmetic, I said. 2 birds, 7 sides, 4 desserts, 30 mouths, 1 back. I tapped the marker bleed. Plus 1,303 19s and a $1,250 ghost walking through our bank. He rubbed his temple. Mom says you're making her look bad. She did that when she canceled catering for optics and kept the refund, I said. I'm just turning on the light. He bent to kiss my forehead. I leaned back before his lips found me and felt the tiny shock travel through him. Boundaries are electric when you've never seen the fence. I don't recognize you, he said. I'm the same, I said. You're just finally looking. Silence stretched. He sat, folded, unfolded the corner of a napkin. One last time, Bella. Do it this once, and I'll back you next year. You promised that in 2019, I said. That was the 486th and 70th wine Christmas. His mouth opened, closed. He reached for the folder. I set my hand on it first. If you touch this, you hear it. I tapped the tiny recorder beside it, the red LED pulsing like a heartbeat. Your mother's voice, your words, mine, dates, amounts. He withdrew, palms up, as if I were holding fire. You're weaponizing dinner. I'm documenting labor. My phone lit. Suzanne. 2:45 a.m. I'll drive. Bring only 1 bag. Don't explain. I typed, thank you. She replied with a single thing I didn't know I needed. You're not crazy. I opened the hall closet and set my carry-on on the floor. The sound of the zipper was louder than it should be. I packed deliberately. Yellow sundress, sandals, swimsuit older than most of Vivian's opinions, the spare copy of the Harbor House receipt. On instinct, I slid the place card I'd written for myself, Isabella, between 2 paperbacks. If I couldn't sit at their table, I would sit at mine. At 11:37 p.m., Hudson stood in the doorway, watching me fold a cotton dress like it might confess. Are you leaving me? He asked, boy soft. I'm leaving the kitchen, I said. You can come join me in the living room of our marriage when you're ready. He swallowed. People will talk. They always do, I said. Tonight they can talk to each other. He drifted toward me, hands empty. Bella, don't. I lifted 1 finger. If you love me enough to let me stop bleeding for your mother's reputation. He nodded like a student who doesn't understand the lesson but knows the test is tomorrow. He went upstairs. I turned off every light in the kitchen one by one. The last to go was over the folder, the table briefly holding my reflection. Older, yes, but whole. In the dark, the refrigerator hummed and the clock's second hand trotted toward 2 p.m. tomorrow like a horse no one else would saddle. I lay down fully dressed, my purse by the door, shoes lined like an argument I was willing to have. At 2:17 a.m. The alarm split the night, and in the soft blue light of my phone, I saw the question I'd been trying not to ask. Was the woman who stayed all these years the same one who could walk out now? 2:41 a.m. The street had that cold paper quiet that lives between bars closing and bread trucks starting. I slipped from bed, shoes on, heart oddly calm. In the kitchen, I left 3 things on the table like sacraments: the beige folder, the Harbor House copy, and a note. 8 words, no apologies. Groceries in the fridge, timers labeled, Isabella. On the counter by the stove, I propped my phone against the backsplash and recorded a single-minute address to the camera. Dates, amounts, the allergy, the word optics. My voice was steady, the way a metronome is steady when it's tired of being ignored. I scheduled it to post in the family WhatsApp at 1:55 p.m., 5 minutes before the carving that would not happen. By the door, the place card with my name waited like a small white witness. I set it on top of the folder, then slid the recorder into my apron pocket out of habit. Old instincts cling. I pulled it back out and tucked it into my purse. I would not wear an apron on a plane. Headlights washed across the living room. Suzanne. I opened the door before she could knock. She took me in with one glance. Carry on, tote. The kind of face you make when the prison door opens and you're the one who had the key all along. No speeches, she said, popping the trunk. The first step is getting in the car. We drove in a gentle silence, the kind women earn. Halfway to the airport, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. It buzzed again. Ruby. I answered. Isabella? Her voice was a thin wire, wary, hopeful. It's early. Are you? Awake, I said. You're not on the list. A laugh that wasn't a laugh. I got uninvited. You'll be more comfortable elsewhere. She said the word comfortable like a prayer. I found a catering refund, I said. Optics. Of course, she inhaled. I have something. A pause, the sound of tapping. My phone pinged with an audio file. That's Vivian's voicemail to me. She says you're useful and Thanksgiving is her stage. Date stamped. Keep it. I put Ruby on speaker. The car filled with Vivian's voice, crisp, careless, the tone of a woman who expects the world to rise and curtsy. Isabella handles it. That's her place. I won't have a mess at my table. Time code. Have you been through something similar? Tell us your story in the comments below. We read every comment. It's important for us to know we're not alone. 4:12 p.m. Suzanne whistled low. There it is. N3. Voice. You've got N1 contradictions, N2 documents, now N3 audio. All you need is an N4, the confession or contract. I smiled. Small, but real. I have the refund signature, Vivian's hand on Harbor House, and Hudson's card trail. Suzanne's eyes flicked to me at the red light. Then your N4 is already breathing. The airport rose out of the dark like a lit ship. 3:07 a.m. She pulled to the curb, put the car in park, and turned to me. Do you need me to talk you out of this? I need you to tell me I'm not cruel. You're not, she said. You're correct. Inside, Gate B12 glowed on the screen. I printed my boarding pass at the kiosk because I wanted paper. Paper lives. Flight 442, 4:15 a.m. Seat 19A. The letters looked like a door I had purchased with interest. At security, I slipped off my shoes and thought of my mother teaching me to move quietly through rooms where I wasn't meant to be seen. At the conveyor belt, my purse paused, then slid through. The recorder nestled inside, red light off, full of a woman deciding not to die tidily. My phone hummed. Hudson. Where are you? Then again. Bella, this isn't funny. I powered it down. I would not spend the rest of my life explaining physics to people offended by gravity. At 3:17 a.m., the gate agent's voice cracked the air. Final boarding, flight 442 to Maui. I touched the place card in my pocket like a charm, breathed once, and asked myself a question so simple it felt like a revolution. What if I let them eat what they cooked? Gate B12 had the hum of a chapel before a wedding. People pretending this wasn't a beginning. I found a corner near an outlet, opened my laptop, and logged into the part of myself that wears numbers like armor. If you've ever carried a whole holiday on your back, type receipts in the comments, because today, mine would breathe. First, I called Harbor House Catering. A woman answered on the second ring, warm southern vowels that made lies sound like iced tea. Morning, this is Isabella Foster. I need a written confirmation of a cancellation and refund. Date, amount, card tail numbers. Of course, she said. Name on the booking? Vivian Foster, but the deposit was run on a different card, ending 4412. A pause, keys tapped. Yes, I see it. Thanksgiving banquet, 30 covers. Deposit $1,250 on 11/12, 10:08 a.m. Cancellation 11/18, 3:41 p.m. Refund to card 4412. Another small pause, and then the sentence that turned my stomach. Cancellation note says, per Mr. Hudson Foster's call, family prefers homemade for optics. My mouth went dry. Could you email that to me, itemized, with timestamps? Happy to. I'll include the signed authorization we received from Ms. Vivian as well. I ended the call and stared at the far wall where a poster told me to arrive early. Breathe easy. I had wanted the villain to be tidy, a single woman with a pearl strand conscience. But there it was, arithmetic in a suit. Vivian's signature, Hudson's call, my body. The shell game wasn't just hers. The boy had learned from the woman who raised him. The email arrived while the gate agent called pre-board. Subject, Harbor House, cancellation confirmation. Foster Thanksgiving. I downloaded the PDF because paper lives longer than apologies. Deposit, $1,250. Card tail, 4412. H. Foster cancellation, 11/18, 3:41 p.m. Per Mr. Hudson Foster, homemade for optics, per Ms. Vivian Foster. Attached, signed authorization, V. Foster. I slid the PDF into a folder labeled N2, Documents and attached Ruby's voicemail, N3, Audio, to an email draft addressed to the full family list Carmen had given me months ago for a birthday montage that never happened. Subject line, Thanksgiving details, read at 1:55 p.m. I scheduled it for 1:55 p.m. Eastern, 5 minutes before Vivian's carved illusions. As backup, I copied everything to Carmen with a note. If this goes sideways, hit send all. No commentary, let the receipts talk. Boarding began. I powered down the laptop and touched the place card in my tote, Isabella, like a saint's medal. The worst part wasn't that they'd conspired to make me labor. It was that they'd wanted the world to clap for a show whose bruises were under my sleeves. On the jetway, my phone buzzed. Hudson. Up early? Coffee? Then, a second text that missed me and somehow hit. Don't forget Mom's blue dress. I put the phone in airplane mode. I took seat 19A, pressed my palm to the window, and watched the ground crew lock the cargo door. Above the clouds, I opened my notebook and wrote in block letters because the truth should be legible. I am not leaving love. I am leaving a job. No one agreed to pay. The captain announced our taxi. I closed my eyes and saw 11:18, 3:41 p.m., a timestamp with a man's voice attached, and the question I had spent 5 years avoiding finally stepped into the light like a witness who couldn't be bought. If Hudson made the call, who exactly had I been cooking for? We leveled off above a quilt of dawn. The cabin lights dimmed, and trays clicked down like small stages. I didn't order coffee. I wanted a clean mouth for the truth. I opened my N4 folder, the one I'd left on the table labeled Proof, Thanksgiving 2024, and wrote a short index on hotel stationery I'd stolen from a trip with my sister before marriage trained me out of souvenirs. 1. Harbor House PDF, deposit, cancellation, refund, times and card, 4412. 2. Signed authorization, Vivian's hand. 3. Ruby voicemail, her stage, your place is the kitchen. 4. Kitchen audio, Vivian's, your place is the kitchen. My gifts require consent. 5. Bank screenshots, 303.19 groceries plus disposables. 6. Place card count, 30 cards, none for Isabella. I printed 2 copies last night, one in the folder on the table, one in my tote. I sealed the tote copy into a manila envelope addressed to myself because sometimes the only way to be believed is to sign for your own life. Then I prepared the one act of mercy I could afford. A script. Not apologies. A path. I typed a plain text email to Hudson, unscheduled, unsent, because I wanted the option to forgive or to fold. The subject line was a ledger line. Smaller table, fair ledger, yes when I say no. Inside, I wrote 3 terms. 1. 8 guests max, unless potluck, catered. 2. Shared labor tracked and rotated. 3. Your mother doesn't manage me. Consequence if broken, I will not attend. No exclamation marks. Facts don't need glitter. The flight attendant came by, asked if I wanted anything. Just water, I said, because my mouth still felt like a place where a verdict had been read. Over Kansas, I took out my phone and turned it on for a breath, just long enough to make sure the 1:55 p.m. email was still queued in scheduled. It was, sitting there like a clean blade wrapped in cloth. I added one more attachment, a screenshot of Hudson's text about the blue dress. The social part of the truth is often the part that cuts. I powered off again and let the engine noise be a kind of absolution. If you've ever wanted to walk out instead of set the table for your own humiliation, type receipts, not for me, for the woman sitting 3 rows back, clutching a phone that keeps ringing with other people's hunger. At 11:39 a.m. Eastern, my plane crossed into a different sky, but my clock stayed set to Savannah. The captain announced mild turbulence. My stomach didn't notice. In my mind, I watched the day unfold without me. Hudson waking to the silence that used to be my footsteps. Vivian inspecting a turkey that looked too raw to obey physics. The Sanders arriving with watch faces like judges. I wasn't there. That was the inversion. Not loud, not cruel, quiet. The knife wasn't in anyone's flesh. It was out of mine. At 1:52 p.m., 3 minutes before the scheduled send, I turned my phone on and watched bars grow like courage. Notifications stacked in fury. 27 texts from Hudson, 12 from Vivian, a cluster from unknown cousins. I didn't open them. I opened Gmail and hovered over scheduled. 1:55 p.m. The emails flew, one to the family list, one to Hudson, one to Carmen with admin rights to forward, and a quiet BCC to myself, because paper lives. I put the phone face down and stared at the aisle carpet, blue with a pattern that looked like drops of something you can't quite clean. Somewhere in a dining room without me, a notification pinged, and 30 people met the woman they'd been eating for years. My phone vibrated so hard it walked a little on the tray table, and I picked it up to see a name I hadn't expected jump to the top of the thread with a single terrifying sentence. The name that jumped to the top of my screen, Mr. Sanders, was the last person I expected to text me on a holiday I'd fled. His message was one line, knife clean. Your husband says you forged a catering receipt. My mouth went dry. The plane trembled, a pocket of air or a pocket of truth, hard to tell. Before I could reply, Hudson lit my phone. Incoming call. I answered. Say it plain, I said. You need to unsend those emails, he said, voice low and frantic. Mom's melting down. The Sanders are furious. You're making this look criminal. What's criminal is calling Harbor House at 3:41 p.m. 11:18 to cancel for optics and routing the refund to card 4412, I said. The PDF is in your inbox. He was silent long enough for the engine to fill the gap. You're misunderstanding. Mom signed because she's the host. I just handled logistics. You handled the shell game, I said. Our joint account fronted $1,250. You collected the refund. She collected the praise. I collected the labor. He tried the gentle voice, the one that used to unclench me. Bella, this is family business. Take it down, please. Family business is what men call women's work when they want it unpaid, I said. Harbor House sent the confirmation with your name on the cancellation. Ruby sent your mother's voicemail. Her stage, your place, is the kitchen. I have Vivian on my recorder saying the same sentence in my house. Which part should I retract, the timestamp or the tone? He exhaled, sharp. You're blowing up my career over a misunderstanding. Your boss didn't send the knives, I said. If your career can't survive you telling the truth to your mother, it isn't a career. It's a chore. He lowered his voice further, the way men do when they reach for threat and call it reason. If you step into that church tomorrow, I'll— Stop, I said, and the word had weight because I finally meant it. Don't finish a sentence you can't take back. A background murmur swelled. Voices, cutlery, the sound of a room that wanted a show. He covered the phone, then came back. People are staring at me like I'm the thief. Not a thief, I said. A beneficiary. There's a difference. One leaves fingerprints, the other leaves women. Take it down, he said. I'll fix Mom. You can fix yourself, I said. 3 terms, Hudson. 8 guests max unless potluck or catered. Shared labor, tracked and rotated. Your mother doesn't manage me. Break it, and I don't attend. He barked a laugh without humor. You're negotiating in the middle of a fire. No, I said, soft. I'm exiting the building. He went quiet. Then came the first honest thing he'd said all year. I don't know how to tell her no. I left you instructions, I said. They're called receipts. A second line clicked in. Carmen, then another, Aunt Margaret. Then the group name Foster Thanksgiving started pulsing as my scheduled email detonated across a room I wasn't in. In my ear, Hudson inhaled like a diver about to learn the ocean keeps its own time. If stories like this help you breathe, tap like and subscribe, I whispered to every woman who has ever had to prove the obvious. The line crackled, and in the background, a man's voice said, startled, Is that her signature? 1:55 p.m. Eastern. 30 phones lit up around my grandmother's table, the one Vivian called hers when company came. My email opened like a carefully packed suitcase, PDF from Harbor House, signed authorization with Vivian's precise V, call log with Hudson at 3:41 p.m. 11:18, bank screenshots, Ruby's voicemail transcribed with timestamp, a 30-photo carousel of place cards, none with my name. The family chat filled with the noise people make when a mirror suddenly shows their full height. Uncle Raymond. So you canceled catering, Vivian. Vivian. This is taken out of context. Carmen, forwarding the audio. Isabella handles it. That's her place. I won't have a mess at my table. 4:12 p.m. Aunt Margaret. Good Lord. Mr. Sanders, to all. This is unacceptable. We were told. Carmen. You were told to arrive hungry and leave with compliments. Now you're told the cost. I could see it without being there. Uncle Raymond tapping the PDF with 2 fingers like it might confess. Cousin Julie turning her phone to speaker so the whole room had to hear Vivian's voice say, Your place is the kitchen. The Sanders watch faces sharpened. Someone, maybe little Timmy's mother, asked where the nut-free dessert was, and the silence from the kitchen answered her. Hudson texted me directly. You've humiliated us. I replied, I've documented you. He didn't answer. Instead, Mr. Sanders posted a photo, raw turkey, pale and insistent, sitting on a rack that would not make noon obey science. Caption, 2:08 p.m. Vivian wrote 3 paragraphs about tradition, gratitude, mothers who give and give, the down payment, the sacrifices she made in 1989. Carmen replied with a screenshot of my grocery total, 1303.19, and a line I will put on my headstone. Sacrifice that's demanded isn't love, it's a bill. Then Harbor House chimed in, because I had CC'd their general inbox on the family thread. Per attached confirmation, cancellation was requested by Mr. Hudson Foster. Refund processed 11:18. Civility with teeth. Someone in the living room hit play on my 1-minute video, dates, amounts, allergy, optics, and in the background, I heard actual applause. Not for me, for the sound of a woman telling the truth in her own kitchen at last. Ruby texted me privately. My sister says Vivian's face went white as the tablecloth. Then she posted to the group, I was uninvited because grief is messy. Enjoy your optics. The room began to split along a line you only see when it's drawn. Half the guests drifted to the door, murmuring about reservations elsewhere. The other half moved toward the kitchen the way people approach a stage that just turned into a courtroom. Uncle Raymond. We can carve the birds into parts and braise. We'll eat at 7. Mr. Sanders. We won't be staying. Aunt Margaret, to Vivian. You owe that woman an apology. Vivian. She abandoned us. Carmen, she left you what you never gave her, a plan. My phone buzzed. A new email, subject line, Club Inquiry, from the Savannah Country Club manager. We've received documentation that a large private event was canceled for optics, funds rerouted, labor outsourced without compensation. Our board will review membership guidelines regarding staff treatment and financial transparency. Please provide your account of events. I imagined the look on Vivian's face as the one thing she worshipped, reputation, slipped its ring and set itself down on another woman's hand. If stories like this help you breathe, tap like and subscribe, I whispered, and the plane's wheels kissed a runway I could finally call mine. Hudson's last message landed with the dull thud of a man who has run out of script. If you come home tonight, the locks will be changed. And then, before I could type, my bank app flashed a fresh alert that made the blood leave my hands. Joint account withdrawal, 1-250, Weddies, 2:12 p.m. 2:12 p.m. Eastern. My phone vibrated like a trapped insect. Joint account withdrawal, 1D250 Zevurarns. Same number, same old trick. Different woman reading it. I was at the Maui hotel desk, the sea shaped like a promise through glass. I need the fraud department, I told the bank, recorder on the counter beside my elbow, red light steady. Mrs. Foster, a careful voice said. It's a joint account. Both parties can withdraw. I understand, I said. I'm not disputing the right. I'm disputing the pattern. On 11/12, $1,250 left our joint account to card 4412. On 11/18, the refund from a canceled catering returned to 4412. Today, after my documentation went public, another $1,250 walked out the door like it knew the way. A pause. Keys tapped. We can flag for unusual activity and freeze the line of overdraft. We can also open a separate account in your name and move your direct deposit. Do it, I said, and email me the timeline. I hung up and forwarded the bank's confirmation to Hudson with one line. Stop using my labor to launder your mother's optics. I CC'd myself because paper lives, and Carmen, who replied with a heart and a sentence that felt like a sister putting a hand at your back. I'm here when you land home. My inbox pinged. Savannah Country Club, again. Per our bylaws, we've placed Ms. Vivian Foster's membership on administrative hold pending review of the materials you supplied. We have contacted Harbor House to verify. I imagined the sound of Vivian's pearls counting themselves. Then Harbor House replied, all to the family thread. The manager must have had a sister too. Per records, cancellation requested by Mr. Hudson Foster. Attached call log extract. 3:41 p.m. 11:18 glowed on 30 tiny screens like a streetlight no one could pretend wasn't there. The Foster Thanksgiving chat lurched into confessions, the way drunks lurch into light. Uncle Raymond. We all let her do it. I'm ashamed. Aunt Margaret, to Vivian. You said her place is the kitchen. I heard it. Cousin Julie. Timmy's mom is crying in the driveway. He can't eat anything here. Mr. Sanders. My wife and I will not be returning. Vivian. This is a smear. Carmen. It's a mirror. I set my tote on the bed and found the place card, Isabella, between paperbacks. I slid it into the room safe with my passport and the duplicate Harbor House PDF. I am not naive. Truth without shelter invites weather. The club manager called. We'll need a statement. Do you consent to share the documents with our ethics board? Yes, I said, steady, and with any guest who inquires why their expectations outran the menu. Another email. Hudson's boss. Somehow the thread had floated through town faster than gossip. Let's meet Monday to discuss the events of 11/18 and potential conflicts of interest in client-hosted affairs. The thing about optics is they bend both ways. My phone rang. Vivian. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened, because Mercy is curiosity with manners. Her voice was smaller than I knew it could be. Isabella, call me. We can fix this. You tell me the number and I stopped the message and stared at the ocean. Blue like a ledger line, underlining no. I texted Ruby. You were right about comfortable. She replied with a photo of 2 place cards, hers and mine, propped on her kitchen counter beside a store-bought pie. Caption, next year at my place. We eat hot. At sunset, I walk the beach alone. I am 61. I have outlived apologies that never came. The tide left a lace edge on the sand like an accounting of where the water had been and what it chose not to take. Back in the room, another voicemail, Hudson this time. Voice dull. Mom's out at the club. People left. Carmen said words I can't unhear. I see the receipts. A breath. Come home. We'll talk. I picked up the hotel pen, wrote 3 terms on stationery, folded it once, and slid it under the phone like something a clerk could notarize with a glance. 8 guests max, unless potluck or catered. Shared labor, tracked and rotated. Your mother doesn't manage me. Break it, I don't attend. Then the door phone rang and the front desk said, Miss Foster, a courier just arrived with a handwritten note from a Vivian Foster. Would you like it sent up? The envelope was weighty, the way rich people think dignity should feel. My name was centered in ink that had probably been stirred with a silver spoon. I slid it with the room key. Inside, Vivian's handwriting, precise, elegant, the script of a woman who corrects other women's posture without touching them. Isabella, I will admit to poor judgment. The club has paused my privileges. You have my attention. Thanksgiving is a tradition I curated for this family. You have turned it into a spectacle. I propose the following. You return. We apologize to guests. We present a united front. We do not involve outsiders further. In exchange, I will reimburse expenses and allow a simplified menu next year. VF. Allow. Reimburse. The words tried to walk into my room like they paid rent. I scanned the letter, attached it to my growing N2 documents folder, and wrote my response on the hotel stationery with the blunt pencil hotels give the truthful. Vivian, I am not the staff. I am your son's wife. I do not report to you. Here are my terms. Copy sent to Hudson and our counsel. 1. Holidays, 8 guests max unless potluck or professionally catered. 2. Labor, menu planning, costs shared, tasks assigned in writing, rotation enforced by calendar. 3. Boundaries. You don't manage me or my clothing, tone, or tools. 4. Money, no envelope reimbursements. Transfers only, memo lines required. 5. Respect. If you say, her place is the kitchen again, my place will be elsewhere. I'm copying the club manager so optically we are all aligned. Isabella, I sent it. Seconds later, Carmen pinged. Standing ovation. Want me at the house when you land? I typed. Yes, 6 p.m. tomorrow. Morning came with a clean sky and a call from Hudson, soft with the roughness of a man who has slept on a couch that didn't recognize him. Mom's letter? I saw it. You agree to my 5? I asked. A beat. Yes, if we can edit. No edits, I said. We sign or we separate. I'll be at the house at 6 p.m. with Carmen as a witness. We can add counsel if you prefer. He didn't argue. He said something smaller. I want to come home to you. Then walk home, I said. Not to her dining room. The flight back was all blue and resolve. I landed in Savannah at 4:40 p.m. The air smelled like pine and old stone, my city wearing Thanksgiving like perfume. Carmen picked me up in her minivan, scattered with cracker crumbs and children's crayons, the smell of a life that doesn't pretend. At the house, Hudson waited on the porch steps, clean-shaven, no golf towel, eyes red. On the table inside lay 2 copies of a document titled Holiday and Household Agreement, Foster or Foster, 2024. My 5 points, plus 1 postscript he'd added in his own scratchy hand. 6. Therapy, mine weekly, couples bi-weekly through March. He handed me a pen. I'll sell the club membership if you... I don't care about the club, I said. I care about the kitchen. We signed. Carmen snapped a photo for records. No smiles, no theatrics, just paper lives. Then came the last knock I expected. Vivian, coat immaculate, pearls dimmed. She stepped in, eyed the copies, and lifted her chin. Are we done with this melodrama? She asked. No, I said. We're done with your version. She looked at Hudson. Tell your wife she owes... Mom, he said, and for the first time his voice didn't reach for her approval on the way out of his mouth. Stop. Sit. Listen. Vivian sat like it was the first hard chair she'd met. I slid her a third copy of the agreement. "You don't sign this," I said, "because you don't run my house. But you acknowledge it exists." She read. Her mouth tightened at potluck, pinched at calendar, paled at no envelopes. When she reached "her place is the kitchen," she glanced up at me and said, very quietly, "I shouldn't have said that." "You did," I said, and I kept the tape. A long breath. She reached into her purse, and for one hot second I thought she'd pull out cash like absolution and lay it on my table. Instead, she removed a checkbook, wrote $1,363 in neat numbers, and slid it forward. "For the groceries," she said, with memo. I looked at Hudson. He didn't nod or plead. He just looked tired and almost, finally, present. I folded the check, placed it under a magnet on the fridge next to the therapy calendar, and told the truth out loud in my own house, to both of them. "I'm not angry. I'm done." Vivian stood. "Will I be invited next year?" she asked, small as a woman who had found the edges of her title. "If you bring a dish," I said, "and your apology." She opened her mouth, closed it, and then the bell of consequence rang from her pocket, the club calling back. She stepped onto the porch to take it, and when the door clicked, Carmen's phone lit with a message that made all of us look up at once. Carmen's phone glowed like a verdict. She turned it so both of us could read. "Savannah Country Club, Ethics Committee. Decision. Effective immediately, Ms. Vivian Foster's membership is suspended pending restitution of funds misrepresented as event costs and a written apology to affected parties, Harbor House staff and Mrs. Isabella Foster. Notice will appear in the November bulletin." Through the door glass, we watched Vivian on the porch answer her call. The pearl at her throat rose and fell, then stilled. She ended the call and stood there a long time, hands folded around a future that wouldn't curtsy anymore. When she finally looked in at me, there was something I had never seen on her face, not power, not poise, just comprehension. She nodded once, the smallest bow a queen can make to a woman who kept receipts, then walked to her car without reaching for the bell. That night, I slept the way people sleep after a storm takes the roof but leaves the house. Cool air on my face, walls still standing, everything that mattered drying in the dark. In the morning, Hudson brewed coffee and slid a document across the counter, therapy appointments in ink, not intention. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He offered work, the shape of an apology that might live. We tested our agreement like a bridge. December held, birthdays held, and when Easter tried to sprawl, I pointed to the calendar and said 8. He said yes. It wasn't a miracle. It was math. Some days the ledger balanced only because I wrote no, where a younger me would have written, of course. If stories like this help you breathe, say receipts. Thanksgiving came again the way time always does, without permission, with proof. 8 guests, potluck cards taped to the fridge, Carmen's mac and cheese, Uncle Raymond's stuffing. A pumpkin pie I didn't flute because I didn't care if the edges looked like a lesson. Ruby set 2 place cards on my table, Isabella and Ruby, our names right in the center where conversation lives. Suzanne arrived with a grocery store pecan pie and zero shame. "Tradition," she said, "is what doesn't make women bleed." At 1 o'clock, a car door closed outside. I braced, but the steps up the walk were careful, not conquering. Vivian stood there holding a foil pan and an envelope. Her lipstick was softer than I'd ever seen it. "Sweet potatoes," she said. "No nuts. Recipe attached." She lifted the envelope. And the letter. She didn't reach for my face with her words. She waited. I read it at the sink. No dramatics, just nouns and verbs. I said, "Your place is the kitchen." That was untrue and cruel. I canceled catering to be seen as generous and saved money while spending you. I am sorry. I will not do it again. She had CC'd the club manager and Harbor House. She had written memo lines. Paper lived. "May I come in?" she asked. "You can come to the table," I said. "The kitchen has enough women in it." We ate at 2 p.m., like human beings. Hudson carved because he wanted to, not because the performance demanded a man with a knife. When the dishes were done, by all of us, evenly, I opened the drawer and took out a single white card with my name in my own hand. I set Isabella at the center place, not because I needed proof, but because I love ceremony when it's clean. After everyone left, I stood alone in the quiet that used to feel like a threat, and now felt like a room with windows. I placed the proof, Thanksgiving 2024 folder back on the shelf beside the cookbooks, like a spine that helped me stand until my own held. The oven timer chimed, soft, unnecessary, a habit I might still break. And I smiled, because I finally understood the only recipe that never fails. Smaller table, fair ledger, yes, when I say no. And if anyone forgets, I still keep receipts. If this story gave you strength, help us by sharing, liking, and hitting the notification bell. We'd love to hear in the comments which part of the story you liked most. See you tomorrow.